Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Tulley, Senior Writing Coach with Defend and Publish, and welcome to episode 40, Post Your Thesis on the Wall. In this episode, we're going to talk about a strategy that lots of faculty productivity experts recommend in different formats, and I want to talk about how it works and why it works for me, because it's kind of a deceptively simple strategy, but it is one that I've used for a long time, nonetheless. So one of the things that happens with academic projects is that as we write on them, we sometimes let our argument or our overall thesis or our overall claim get away from us. And this happens from first year writing students in college, to first graders writing about a snowy day or something like that in their classroom. So one of the things that has helped me over the years is a piece of advice that I encountered. It's been at least 15 years, maybe since I found this advice, but it comes from Tara Gray, who is a faculty writing expert. She has a book called Publish and Flourish. It's a great small book. I will put a link to it in the show notes. And she advocates posting your thesis on the wall, meaning you write it out on a piece of paper and stick it up on the wall. And so for those of you that are watching the video, you can see I actually at the moment, and I realize these may show up backwards in a Zoom, but behind me, you can see two different thesis statements that are listed for two different projects. One is in a green marker, one is in a brown marker on a piece of paper. And those are for two projects I'm actively thinking through my argument all the time. One is for a book project, and then one is for an article that I'm working on. And I've maintained this habit for a long time. I've written the thesis out or the argument out in a statement and posted it up on the wall. And what happens when I come into work, I lowered these down for the sake of showing these on the Zoom. So normally they're a little bit higher on my actual wall of my office. But one of the things that happens is that when I come to work and I turn around from where I'm recording this, and I log in, I see both of those things. And so I have both of those theses in my head all day. Another benefit to doing that is that I can see after working on my project for a week that, my argument needs to be fine-tuned. So I might then I'll save the one that I had written out, but I'll get a new piece of paper and then write up that thesis as it has changed a little bit, or it has become more nuanced, or my language has become more clear. And I'll put that one up. Same thing with the other projects. So as I'm working on them, obviously the way that I'm going to word these might change. I might take a sentence out of the article that is my thesis statement or my argument or my overall claim or my purpose in writing the article. I might take that sentence right out of the article and write it on the wall. Or vice versa, I might take the one from the wall and put it in the article. So it can be this back and forth exchange. But in addition to helping me remember what my purpose is, so that's certainly a benefit, and also allowing me to see a different way of wording it every time I change it and it's up front and center, it also is a bit of a conversation piece. So, as sometimes as students stop by in the office, as other faculty members stop by in the office, not everybody will, but occasionally somebody will ask me what those are, because sometimes I will have 4 or 5 of these for 4 or 5 different projects on my wall at one time, and I always use different colors just so I can kind of separate the projects in my mind when I look at them. But it is something that then somebody might ask me about what they are. I can then talk about those projects or what those statements are doing. And for writing teachers, I do use this strategy with students as well. I'll say, well, this is how I know what it is I'm writing, because I'm writing towards that thing, whatever that statement is or that thesis is on the wall. So it's very helpful for teaching writing really in any subject. The students tend to think that's kind of neat. And you can do this on a small scale version. Certainly you could do this on a Post-it. I've done this many times on a Post-it and then put it inside my laptop on the little space next to where you can move your finger to move the cursor around. And I know in episode 37, I talked a lot about Post-its as a way to brain dump. So this could be another way if you're doing some dumping of ideas on Post-its, you could spend some time making one of those pieces or one of those Post-its your thesis and post that inside your computer. And that would have the same thing as posting it as a thesis on the wall. So that's definitely a strategy that I use a lot. And then I allow that thesis to change, be shaped, but continually remind me what it is that I'm writing towards. So I just like the simplicity of it. Tara Gray is not the first person to advocate for the strategy, and I like her way of doing it because it's just very simple. What is your point? Write it on a piece of paper, stick it on the wall. So I like the simplicity. But I will say, in the book, I've mentioned a couple times before, the 90 Days, 90 Ways book by Patricia Goodsen. I will put it in the show notes. She talks about the same thing on page 70, where she advocates writing a purpose statement for a project. And I think this is the same concept in a little bit different, or I packaged a little bit differently. So she advocates writing out what your purpose statement is for the project and what it is that you want that writing to accomplish. That may not, and probably is not, the same thing as posting a thesis on the wall, but it can remind you of what your goals are for the project. So for example, my thesis might be, I'll pick one of these over here, the book that I'm working on, or finishing working on, this Rec Comp Moms book that I've mentioned in several episodes. The thesis on the wall I have right now is a combination of kairotic and chronological time choices make academic writing within rhetoric and composition motherhood possible. So that is my overall argument for the book. And it is my purpose for the book. So in that case, they kind of collapse. But in another project that I'm working on, this is one on writing multiple academic writing projects. Here is my thesis, okay? It says, juggling multiple academic writing projects requires flexible and portable thinking and writing habits, and then I have / approaches, because I can't decide if I'm calling these habits or I'm calling them approaches. So that's an example of how my thesis on the wall is still being shaped by what the writing that I'm doing as I figure it out. That's my thesis, but that's not my purpose. My purpose for that particular project, and where the scholarly outlet where it's going to go, is to say that our faculty development efforts to teach faculty to just write on a single project in a linear fashion until they get it finished is not going to work in the way that academic work is done. So there's a different purpose there. And so while the thesis and a purpose can be the same thing, I actually like both of their strategies. And I'm going to link to both Tara Gray and Patricia Goodsen, and you can check out both of those things and see if you might want to use them in combination. I might, and I haven't done this because I just like the simplicity of the thesis on the wall, I might have a thesis and a purpose on the wall maybe for some of these projects. But I do like having them visible, front and center. You could do this in other kinds of ways. For example, I thought of this when I was checking the academic Twitter threads this morning, but I could completely see having your thesis or your purpose pinned to your Twitter profile. So you look at it every day, and it's just like having a thesis on a wall. It's just on your digital wall. You might have this as your screensaver or your background. There's lots of other ways to do it, but the idea is to keep it front and center. Another place where I do a lot of my great thinking is in the car when I'm driving, picking up kids or commuting. One of the things that I do, I have a pack of Post-its in my car in there. And so I could write it out, write this thesis or this purpose out on that and just have it sitting on, taped to my dashboard or something like that. So I'm able to look at it periodically and just keep the background thinking in my head still churning along. So I'm still kind of thinking through the project. And then finally, I mentioned with the one thesis on the wall that I've written it many times. Like I've changed my mind over the course of writing a book for a year. I've changed that thesis time probably 20, 30 times. I don't know. It's been a lot. And so I've saved those old thesis statements when I've had them written out. And how I've been able to use those is in different spots in the book where I needed to kind of lace through that argument, but not maybe as cleanly as I had it done in the introduction, or it doesn't have to be quite as tight as it would have to be in the introduction. I've been able to use those sentences again as nice wrap-ups for chapters and things like that. So that writing and that thinking did not go to waste. I just had that pile of thesis statements, and the way that I used them, I just had them as a stack of printed out pieces of paper. When I was doing some final book revisions and I was looking at wording, I kind of pieced through them and thought, hey, this one really would make a nice wrap up for chapter 3. I could really see this being a great link into getting back to my main argument, but still tying together the smaller pieces in that chapter. So I'm hoping that this strategy helps you. I think it's easy. It might feel like you're making some progress on writing, but you're actually doing some very complex work. We're thinking out, what is my argument? That is, the cornerstone of most academic writing. So it's not wasted time, but it also is something that I think can reasonably be accomplished. And for those of us with tight, teaching schedules or writing schedules, if you only have that 10 minutes here, that 15 minutes there, spending the time to rewrite that and think about that, that's not wasted effort, because all of that, especially if you reuse some of those previous sentences, if some of them are good but not quite there yet, that certainly will get some of that extra labor done towards that piece and move you closer to the finish. So I hope this helps, and happy writing this week.